It was a crisp evening at the elite martial arts gala, held in a grand arena filled with fans, fighters, and media from around the world. The air buzzed with excitement. This was no ordinary event. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered predictions, and everyone was waiting for the main attraction. But no one expected what was about to unfold. Jean-Claude Van Damme, the legendary kickboxer and action star, stepped into the arena, his presence commanding immediate attention. Dressed in a sleek black training outfit, he moved with a confident grace that only years of experience could produce. His eyes scanned the crowd, and then they locked onto Steven Seagal, the calm and stoic martial arts icon already seated near the VIP section. A hush fell over the room as JCVD approached Seagal. The whispers began immediately. "Is he going to?" Some audience members leaned forward, sensing the tension. JCVD stopped just a few feet away, his posture firm, his jaw set. Then in a voice calm but edged with authority, he spoke. "Steven, it's time we settle this." Seagal didn't flinch. His expression remained unreadable, his body relaxed yet undeniably powerful. He had faced countless challengers before, but the aura of JCVD's presence was undeniable. The crowd held its collective breath. The cameras focused, some reporters whispering excitedly, others frantically typing notes, without any warning. JCVD took a slight stance, shifting his weight on his feet, a subtle indication he was ready to strike. The arena seemed to shrink as everyone realized this wasn't just a friendly spar. It was a challenge, and the tension was palpable. Around them, the murmurs of spectators grew louder, questions hanging in the air. Will Steven respond? Who's going to make the first move? Then came the first hint of action. JCVD stepped forward deliberately, his eyes never leaving Seagal's. The crowd leaned in, some holding their phones to record every second. The energy in the arena surged, an invisible electric charge connecting fighter, audience, and anticipation. And in that split second, everyone knew. What happened next would be unforgettable. JCVD's challenge was no idle boast. Something epic was about to unfold, and the world would soon witness a confrontation between two martial arts legends that nobody would forget. What JCVD did next shocked everyone around him. The crowd was on the edge of their seats as Jean-Claude Van Damme subtly adjusted his stance, his eyes never leaving Steven Seagal. Every muscle in his body was coiled like a spring, ready to explode with precision and speed. The arena, which had been buzzing with general excitement just moments ago, now felt electric with anticipation. You could almost hear the collective heartbeat of the audience as they waited for the first move. Seagal, ever composed, remained perfectly still. His hands rested loosely at his sides, his face calm, almost serene. It was the kind of calm that only comes from decades of experience, the kind that unnerves opponents without a single word. Around him, the crowd leaned forward, whispers spreading like wildfire. He's not moving. Is he underestimating JCVD? Jean-Claude took a step forward, testing the distance. He pivoted slightly on his heel, executing a smooth sidekick into the air. Not directed at Seagal yet, but a clear demonstration of his speed and agility. The motion was precise, almost like a warning. "I'm ready." "Are you?" The cameras flashed incessantly, capturing every second. Reporters scribbled furiously in their notebooks, some muttering to each other. "This isn't staged. JCVD is really going for it." Phones were raised, recording, streaming live to thousands around the world. Social media would soon be ablaze with clips of this moment. Seagal's eyes finally shifted just slightly, enough to signal acknowledgement without showing any sign of panic. And then, in a subtle but deliberate motion, he lifted his right foot, pivoted slightly, and executed a soft, almost invisible defensive stance. It wasn't a flashy move, but it radiated control and readiness. The crowd murmured again. People who thought they could guess the outcome were suddenly unsure. JCVD smirked slightly, an almost imperceptible acknowledgement that this would not be easy. He took a series of light steps forward, feinting a front kick to measure Seagal's reaction. Seagal responded instantly, leaning back, shifting his weight in perfect timing, avoiding the strike with the precision of a master. Every move was deliberate, each second dripping with tension. The crowd erupted in low gasps and murmurs. "Did you see that?" someone shouted. Seagal moved before the kick even landed. JCVD, realizing his usual speed wasn't enough to catch Seagal off guard, adjusted his approach. He began a series of quick, low kicks aimed to test Seagal's defenses. Seagal, however, met each one with perfect counters, sliding just out of range, deflecting energy with the minimum movement required. Around the arena, spectators were recording everything. Phones captured JCVD's lightning-fast kicks, Seagal's calm counters, and the intensity of the stare-down that refused to break. You could feel the tension in the air like a living thing, wrapping around every corner of the arena. Fans were whispering to one another, "I've never seen JCVD move like this." And Seagal isn't even flinching. JCVD, realizing that brute force alone wouldn't be enough, switched tactics. He began mixing high-flying kicks with rapid hand strikes, each one testing Seagal's timing and reflexes. But Seagal's responses were measured, precise, almost like he was reading JCVD's movements before they happened. Each strike that JCVD threw was expertly deflected, and yet he couldn't help but admire the skill. Respect began to form even amidst the tension. The energy in the arena escalated. Every movement was being scrutinized by the audience. Children held their breath. Adults leaned forward. Even seasoned martial artists watching knew they were witnessing a clash of legends. The raw skill of JCVD against the unshakable precision of Seagal. And then came the first real contact. JCVD launched a spinning back kick aimed at Seagal's torso. The speed and power were enough to make the crowd flinch. Seagal barely moved, but with a subtle sidestep and a twist of his torso, he redirected JCVD's energy harmlessly past him. The crowd gasped loudly. "He just redirected that kick like it was nothing," someone shouted. JCVD's eyes widened slightly, not in fear but in recognition. This was no ordinary opponent. Every strike, every feint was met with an equal measure of skill and anticipation. But JCVD smiled. It was the smile of a warrior who loves a challenge. He stepped back, wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, and nodded subtly, signaling to the audience and to Seagal. "Let's see who can outthink whom next. Who would you bet on if this turned into a full fight? Comment your choice and tell us your city. Where are you watching from?" The crowd erupted again, cameras zooming in on every subtle movement. The battle of wits and reflexes was only beginning, and everyone knew that the next few moments would define this legendary confrontation. JCVD lunged forward again, faster, sharper, more calculated than before, and the clash of two martial arts titans was officially underway. The arena was electric, every eye glued to the two martial arts legends facing off. Jean-Claude Van Damme had now fully committed to the confrontation, circling Steven Seagal with the precision of a predator, each movement calculated to test his opponent. The crowd's murmurs had turned into audible excitement, punctuated by gasps and cheers as the first waves of strikes and counters began. JCVD struck first, plunging forward with a lightning-fast series of punches aimed at Seagal's upper body. Each jab was precise, his fists slicing through the air with a speed only a lifetime of training could produce. Seagal, however, remained calm, stepping slightly to the side and parrying the blows with minimal movement. The audience gasped collectively. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion, only pure mastery from both fighters. Jean-Claude adjusted instantly, switching his tactic. High kicks, spinning maneuvers, and sudden low sweeps flowed seamlessly in a fluid combination. A dazzling display of flexibility and power. Seagal, still composed, responded with smooth blocks and evasive steps, countering JCVD's aggression with precision and grace. It was not just a physical clash, it was a chess match in motion, every move carefully predicted and answered. The crowd was on the edge of their seats. Phones were held high, recording every second. The tension was palpable, almost suffocating. Children held onto their parents. Adults leaned forward, and some spectators whispered to one another, "I've never seen JCVD move like this, and Seagal isn't even breaking a sweat." The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, everyone sensing that a defining moment was approaching. JCVD attempted a daring spinning back kick, aiming for Seagal's midsection. The crowd flinched as his leg cut through the air, a blur of speed and force. Seagal, with the calm precision he was known for, shifted his weight, pivoting just enough to redirect the kick harmlessly past him. The audience erupted in astonishment, some cheering loudly, others whispering in disbelief. JCVD landed on his feet, immediately recovering, his eyes locking with Seagal's in silent acknowledgement. Seagal's counter was subtle but powerful. He stepped forward with a smooth, almost gliding motion, closing the distance and executing a controlled palm strike. Not meant to injure, but to assert dominance, it brushed against JCVD's shoulder. enough to signal his presence and skill. JCVD stumbled slightly, not from the force but from surprise. He knew he was up against an opponent who would not be easily fooled or overpowered. JCVD regrouped, shaking off the momentary setback. He circled Seagal again, faster this time, feinting left and then striking right, combining punches, kicks, and sudden low sweeps in rapid succession. Seagal moved like water, flowing around the attacks, redirecting energy with minimal effort. The audience could barely follow the speed, their excitement reaching a fever pitch. Some spectators shouted encouragements, others debated tactics among themselves. JCVD has the agility, one person yelled. Seagal's experience is unbeatable, another countered. The clash wasn't just a physical spectacle. It was a mental duel, a contest of strategy, skill, and anticipation. JCVD tried another audacious move, a high, spinning kick aimed at Seagal's head. The crowd collectively held its breath. Seagal leaned back just slightly, tilting his torso and ducking under the strike with perfect timing. JCVD's kick cut through the air inches above him, and he landed solidly on the ground, eyes narrowing, knowing he had to adjust his approach once again. The intensity escalated further. JCVD launched a combination of lightning-fast punches, aiming for Seagal's ribs and shoulders, testing his reflexes. Seagal responded with calculated blocks, redirecting energy and maintaining his balance perfectly. Every strike, every step, every subtle shift of weight was being scrutinized by the audience, who realized they were witnessing something historic. Even as JCVD pressed harder, Seagal's calm aura never wavered. The veteran's strategy was clear: patience, precision, and control. JCVD, despite his youth and speed advantage, had to adapt constantly. The crowd leaned forward, some cheering, others whispering, "This is the ultimate martial arts showdown. Who will come out on top?" If you were in the arena, would you cheer for Jean-Claude Van Damme or Steven Seagal? Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. The first clash was over, but neither fighter was willing to back down. The sweat glistened on JCVD's forehead. Seagal's calm composure remained unshaken. The intensity of the battle had already left the audience breathless, their excitement and awe only growing. Everyone knew that the next round would define the momentum, and both legends were ready for whatever came next. JCVD readied himself again, fists up, eyes focused. Seagal shifted slightly, a subtle sign that he too was preparing. The arena fell into a tense silence, broken only by the soft shuffle of feet and the quick intake of collective breaths. The next seconds promised to be even more explosive, as the legendary battle continued, each fighter pushing their limits to claim supremacy. The arena seemed to hold its breath as the fight entered its next stage. The first round of attacks had tested both fighters' reflexes, speed, and composure. Now it was clear that Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal were not just testing each other. They were fully committed. Each move calculated with precision, each feint a probe into the other's strategy. JCVD circled Seagal cautiously, fists raised, eyes locked on his opponent. He had recognized something in Seagal during the first exchanges, an unshakable calm that masked a devastating ability to anticipate moves. Every strike JCVD had thrown so far had been met with an almost effortless counter or evasion. The crowd, sensing the intensity of the duel, leaned forward, cameras raised, hearts pounding. The excitement in the arena was tangible. JCVD feinted a low kick to Seagal's left side, then immediately spun into a high front kick aimed at Seagal's torso. The crowd gasped as Seagal, without changing his expression, stepped back just enough to deflect the force, using the momentum to pivot and launch a counterattack. With a smooth motion, Seagal extended his right hand, delivering a sharp palm strike toward JCVD's shoulder. The move wasn't meant to hurt, it was a demonstration of control, but the impact caused JCVD to stagger slightly. The audience erupted into a mix of cheers and astonished whispers. "Did you see that? Seagal just redirected Van Damme's power effortlessly." JCVD's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary opponent. Seagal's movements were economical, precise, almost surgical. Each defensive maneuver doubled as an offensive opportunity. JCVD regrouped, taking a step back, quickly analyzing Seagal's rhythm and timing. He launched a flurry of rapid punches, mixed with low kicks, testing Seagal's reflexes and agility. But Seagal moved like water, redirecting JCVD's energy with minimal effort. The energy in the arena intensified. Phones flashed, capturing every strike, block, and subtle glance between the fighters. Spectators whispered to each other in awe. Van Damme's speed is insane, but Seagal's anticipation is unreal. Some cheered for JCVD's relentless aggression, others for Seagal's calm dominance. It was a battle of experience versus explosive power, strategy versus agility. JCVD attempted a daring spinning back kick aimed at Seagal's midsection. The crowd collectively held its breath. Seagal, with the grace of a seasoned master, leaned back just enough to let the kick pass harmlessly. But he didn't just evade. He used the motion to shift his stance, closing the distance and setting up a counter. He swept his leg low, attempting to unbalance JCVD, forcing him to jump back. The maneuver was precise, a mix of defense and offense that left the audience roaring with excitement. Van Damme didn't falter. He landed nimbly, immediately transitioning into a combination of high kicks and rapid strikes. Seagal, calm and composed, adjusted his stance fluidly, intercepting strikes with subtle blocks and redirections. Every motion was calculated, minimal but deadly in its effect. The fight had evolved from a simple clash into a complex dance of martial arts mastery. The crowd was electrified. Cameras zoomed in on every motion, capturing the contrast between JCVD's explosive energy and Seagal's controlled, flowing movements. People were on their feet, cheering, shouting, and whispering simultaneously. "This is like watching lightning versus water," someone exclaimed. The atmosphere was surreal, a mix of awe, adrenaline, and the thrill of witnessing greatness. JCVD, realizing that sheer speed alone would not win, began mixing unexpected feints with unorthodox angles, hoping to create an opening. He feinted left, then launched a low sweep kick followed by a spinning elbow strike. Seagal anticipated the sequence, stepping aside effortlessly, letting JCVD's energy carry past him while maintaining perfect balance. Every move Seagal made seemed effortless, almost poetic, yet deadly effective. The tension escalated further. JCVD's aggression met Seagal's precision in a back-and-forth exchange that left the audience breathless. Both fighters were drenched in sweat, breathing controlled, movements crisp and exact. Each second was charged with anticipation. The crowd knew that the next decisive move could shift the momentum entirely. Who's dominating in your eyes? Van Damme with his explosive moves or Seagal with his calm mastery? Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. JCVD paused briefly, circling, resetting his focus. Seagal mirrored him, maintaining his unshakable composure. Both fighters knew that the climax of this legendary confrontation was approaching. The next few exchanges would define the momentum, and both martial arts icons were ready to push beyond their limits. The crowd's energy surged, sensing that they were witnessing a historic duel, one that would be remembered for years to come. The arena was in a state of absolute frenzy. Every spectator, from die-hard martial arts fans to casual onlookers, was on the edge of their seats holding their breath as the clash between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal escalated to new heights. The first skirmishes had revealed the skills and temperament of both fighters, but now the showdown was entering its most intense, high-stakes phase. Jean-Claude Van Damme tightened his fists, his muscles taut and ready. His chest rose and fell, with controlled breaths, eyes locked on Seagal reading his every subtle motion. JCVD had already realized that sheer speed and agility alone were not enough to overpower Seagal. He needed precision, timing, and unpredictability, and he had a few surprises left in his arsenal. With a sudden burst, JCVD launched forward, throwing a combination of high and low kicks that blended seamlessly with rapid punches. The crowd gasped at the sheer speed of the strikes. Seagal, ever composed, shifted his stance fluidly, parrying and redirecting the attacks with minimal movement. He moved like water, flowing, precise, and impossible to catch off guard. Yet, even with his calm mastery, Seagal's eyes narrowed slightly, recognizing JCVD's adaptability. JCVD feinted to the left, then pivoted into a spinning hook kick aimed for Seagal's head. The arena erupted as the crowd collectively held its breath. Seagal leaned back just enough, letting the strike pass harmlessly while simultaneously positioning himself for a counter. The fluidity of his motion left spectators awestruck. Every muscle in his body seemed to anticipate JCVD's next move before it happened. But JCVD wasn't finished. He rolled through the momentum of the spinning kick, landing gracefully on his feet, immediately following up with a lightning-fast flurry of jabs and roundhouse kicks. Seagal met them calmly, deflecting the strikes and redirecting JCVD's energy. The two fighters were now in perfect sync, a battle of strategy, skill, and endurance rather than just raw strength. The crowd could hardly keep up. Phones flashed everywhere, capturing every movement, every subtle glance, every audible grunt of exertion. "This is insane," someone shouted. "Van Damme's speed versus Seagal's precision, who will win?" The audience erupted in cheers, gasps, and chants, feeding the adrenaline of the fighters themselves. JCVD decided it was time to escalate further. He launched a daring flying sidekick, aimed squarely at Seagal's midsection. The crowd collectively flinched, anticipating impact, but Seagal, with almost supernatural calm, shifted his torso, using the momentum of JCVD's kick to pivot behind him. He extended his hand in a sweeping motion, a controlled palm strike meant to unbalance rather than harm. JCVD stumbled but recovered immediately, landing a few feet away with a grin that spoke volumes. He respected Seagal's skill. Seagal now pressed forward slightly, his movements deliberate but forceful. He executed a low sweep kick, targeting JCVD's legs to test his balance. JCVD leaped over the attack, spinning midair, and countered with a rapid knee strike aimed at Seagal's torso. The crowd was in a frenzy. Cheers, shouts, and the sound of cameras capturing the epic back-and-forth assault filled the arena. The battle had reached a new level. Sweat glistened on both fighters, muscles taut with exertion, breaths controlled but heavy. Every strike, every block, every feint was a display of mastery, experience, and sheer willpower. The energy in the arena was almost tangible, a mix of tension, awe, and excitement. Spectators whispered and shouted simultaneously, "This is the ultimate martial arts showdown." JCVD, recognizing the limits of brute force, began employing unorthodox angles, mixing high-flying kicks with rapid hand strikes, keeping Seagal on constant alert. Seagal, however, adapted seamlessly, countering with subtle deflections and precision strikes that left JCVD briefly off balance. The crowd erupted at every near contact, every successful block, and every daring maneuver. If you were standing here, would you cheer for Van Damme's explosive attacks or Seagal's calm mastery? Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. The intensity reached a fever pitch as JCVD executed a combination of spinning back kicks, roundhouse strikes, and lightning jabs in rapid succession. Seagal met the attacks with flowing, precise movements, redirecting energy rather than meeting force with force. It was no longer just a fight. It was a dance, a battle of minds as much as bodies. As the first signs of fatigue began to appear, both fighters paused for a brief moment, circling each other, eyes locked. The crowd's anticipation soared. They knew the next moves could be decisive. JCVD clenched his fists, gritting his teeth, while Seagal remained calm, poised, and ready to capitalize on any mistake. The arena fell into tense silence, each spectator realizing they were witnessing history, a true clash of martial arts titans. With a subtle nod, JCVD launched forward once more, faster and sharper than ever, ready to push the battle to its absolute peak. Seagal met him, matching every move, and the ultimate showdown continued, both legends pushing beyond their limits, proving that skill, strategy, and respect are just as important as power and speed. The atmosphere in the arena was electric, a tangible pulse of anticipation and awe. Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal had battled for what seemed like an eternity. Each strike, each counter, a testament to their mastery. Sweat gleamed on their foreheads, muscles flexed with exertion, and their breathing, though controlled, was heavy with effort. Every spectator could feel it. The fight was about to reach its turning point. JCVD had been relentless, throwing high-flying kicks, spinning maneuvers, and rapid punches in a dizzying display of speed and agility. But Seagal's calm, fluid defense had begun to wear on him. The veteran martial artist wasn't just reacting. He was reading JCVD, anticipating moves, and using Van Damme's own momentum against him. It was the quiet power of experience versus the explosive energy of youth, and slowly, Seagal was gaining the upper hand. Jean-Claude lunged forward with a spinning back kick aimed at Seagal's torso. The audience gasped as the strike cut through the air, fast and precise. Seagal leaned back slightly, redirecting the kick past him, and in one fluid motion he stepped forward, closing the distance. With a controlled palm strike to JCVD's shoulder, he disrupted Van Damme's balance just enough to halt the momentum. JCVD stumbled slightly but regained his footing immediately, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. Seagal pressed the advantage now, moving with the smooth precision that had made him legendary. He combined low sweeps, deft sidesteps, and subtle deflections, forcing JCVD to constantly adjust. The crowd roared with every near miss and every counterattack. Spectators were on the edge of their seats, phones held high, recording every move for posterity. "Seagal's control is insane," one shouted. "Van Damme's speed is unmatched, but Seagal is reading him like a book." JCVD realized he needed to change strategy. He attempted a rapid combination: high kick, spinning elbow, and a low sweep, hoping to catch Seagal off guard. But Seagal anticipated the sequence, moving with almost supernatural timing. He blocked the high kick, sidestepped the spinning elbow, and smoothly deflected the low sweep with a precise step. The audience erupted, awestruck at the seamless display of skill from both fighters. The momentum had clearly shifted. JCVD's explosive movements were no longer dictating the fight. Seagal's calm mastery was dictating the pace. Yet JCVD did not falter. He gritted his teeth, circling, feinting, and probing for any opening, trying to regain the initiative. The crowd's excitement grew exponentially, sensing the rising tension. Every footstep, every shift in stance, every flick of the wrist was amplified by the roar of the spectators. Seagal executed a series of flowing movements: deflect, counter, redirect that seemed almost effortless. He used Van Damme's energy against him, turning aggressive attacks into opportunities to showcase his own dominance. JCVD attempted a high, spinning sidekick, but Seagal caught the rhythm, pivoted, and subtly pushed Van Damme off balance, demonstrating that experience and strategy could neutralize raw power and speed. Do you think JCVD can turn this fight around, or is Seagal now unbeatable? Share your thoughts and tell us where you're watching from. Jean-Claude paused briefly, sweat dripping from his brow, breathing controlled but heavy. He narrowed his eyes, recognizing that brute force alone wouldn't work. Seagal's calm, precise countering had shifted the momentum entirely. The crowd could feel it, the balance had tipped. Yet the audience also sensed that JCVD's adaptability and resilience meant he could still challenge Seagal in a critical moment. The fighters squared off again. JCVD launched forward faster and sharper, feinting left, striking right. Seagal moved like liquid, sidestepping, deflecting, and redirecting with minimal effort. The intensity of the battle had reached a fever pitch. The arena erupted into cheers and gasps as Van Damme's attacks met Seagal's unshakable defense. In this moment, respect between the two fighters was evident. JCVD's eyes flickered with admiration. Seagal's calm exterior remained, but there was acknowledgement in his stance, a recognition of Van Damme's skill and determination. The crowd sensed it too. This was more than a fight. It was a demonstration of martial arts mastery, strategy, and respect. A clash that would be remembered for decades. With a subtle nod, Seagal readied himself for the next engagement, fully in control yet prepared for JCVD's unpredictable assault. JCVD's fists were raised, muscles coiled, eyes focused. The stage was set for the final showdown. The momentum had shifted, but the fight was far from over. The audience's excitement surged to a crescendo as both legends prepared to push beyond their limits, ready to prove who could dominate this epic battle. The arena was electric, buzzing with anticipation as the two martial arts titans squared off one final time. Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal had pushed each other to the limits, exchanging strikes, counters, and feints in a display of skill, precision, and raw power that had left the audience breathless. Sweat dripped from both fighters, their muscles taut and movements fluid, yet there was a calm intensity in their eyes, a silent acknowledgement of the respect that had formed between them. JCVD lunged forward one last time, launching a combination of rapid punches and spinning kicks designed to overwhelm Seagal. The crowd erupted, phones raised to capture what everyone knew would be the climax of this legendary confrontation. Seagal, ever composed, moved with a quiet, almost uncanny precision, blocking and redirecting each attack with minimal effort. The sheer contrast was mesmerizing. Van Damme's explosive energy against Seagal's calm mastery. For a moment, It seemed as if JCVD had found an opening. He feinted left, then pivoted into a high kick aimed at Seagal's torso. The audience collectively gasped, leaning forward in anticipation. But Seagal anticipated the move, stepping aside gracefully, using Van Damme's momentum to guide him past. In one smooth motion, Seagal executed a palm strike, not to injure, but to assert control, a demonstration of skill that left JCVD momentarily off balance. JCVD recovered instantly, landing gracefully on his feet. He smiled, acknowledging Seagal's mastery with a subtle nod. The crowd roared in approval. Cheers, whistles, and applause filled the arena. Both fighters had demonstrated their abilities to an extraordinary degree, and now the tension had shifted from competition to mutual respect. Seagal advanced, his movements deliberate yet fluid, signaling a calm authority that contrasted perfectly with Van Damme's explosive style. JCVD responded with a series of lightning-fast strikes, but it was clear that Seagal's experience and precision had shifted the momentum. The audience felt it too. The battle was no longer just about speed or power, but about strategy, timing, and mastery. Then came the moment that would be remembered for years. JCVD and Seagal launched simultaneously, the former with a flurry of high kicks and spinning strikes, the latter with precise flowing counters that redirected every bit of energy back to Van Damme. The clash was almost poetic, a synchronized display of martial arts at its finest. The crowd rose to their feet, shouting, cheering, and gasping as the two legends pushed each other beyond the limits of human skill. Finally, after the last exchange, both fighters stepped back, breathing heavily, sweat dripping from their brows but standing tall and composed. JCVD raised his fists briefly in respect, and Seagal responded with a subtle nod and a small smile. The audience erupted, a thunderous roar filling the arena. Phones flashed, capturing the iconic moment when two of the greatest martial artists in the world acknowledged each other's mastery. The spectacle quickly went viral online. Clips of the intense exchanges, the breathtaking strikes, and the ultimate show of respect between Van Damme and Seagal spread across social media, captivating millions worldwide. Fans marveled at the skill, the discipline, and the unspoken camaraderie between two legends. Headlines celebrated the encounter. Van Damme versus Seagal, the martial arts clash for the ages. Both fighters addressed the crowd briefly afterward. JCVD spoke first. "Steven is one of the greatest martial artists I've ever faced. Today wasn't about winning, it was about testing ourselves, pushing our limits, and showing respect for the art we love." Seagal followed. "Jean-Claude's skill and determination are incredible. Today proved that martial arts is not just about strength. It's about respect, timing, and heart." The arena continued to buzz with excitement long after the fight ended. Spectators discussed every strike, every counter, every moment where it seemed Van Damme or Seagal might gain the upper hand. But the consensus was clear. This confrontation was not just a battle. It was a celebration of martial arts itself, a testament to discipline, respect, and skill. If you think respect and mastery are more important than raw power, type respect in the comments below. Who's your favorite, Van Damme or Seagal? And tell us where you're watching from. As the crowd slowly dispersed, the image of two legends acknowledging each other with mutual respect was etched into the minds of everyone present. The fight had ended, but its impact, the display of skill, honor, and professionalism, would be remembered for decades to come. In that arena, history had been made, and the world had witnessed a true martial arts spectacle.